A house is made of wood and stone, but only love can make a home. Welcome to the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show, helping you make your home into one you'll love even more. On News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. Dan, Haley, same to you.
Yeah.
Happy Saturday.
Yeah. You know, I was looking at the extended weather forecast because those are extremely reliable. But I'm going to roll with it because at this point in time, it looks like it's going to be 60 degrees next week.
Yeah.
I'm pretty hopeful.
That's pretty nice.
I'm glad for that.
Yeah. I can't wait. I don't normally mind the cold.
Yeah.
But there comes to be a point where all of a sudden something happens.
March is a hard month for that reason because it goes back and forth. We get our hopes up a little bit. Yeah.
Hope is the worst sometimes. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the good weather. Excited to get outside a little bit more. Work off some of my winter fat. You guys are supposed to say, no. What winter fat?
What?
Okay, let's do that again. No. There's not much. A little. Okay, we're going to just move on because you guys didn't help me out at all. Anyway.
Just leave me hanging out there.
Is that a fat joke? Is that?
It could be.
No.
I think this just happens with age. It makes me drought and famine resistant. Anyway, today we've got a lot of stuff. We're going to talk about Dutch doors, which has an interesting history, and we're seeing a lot of those on design blogs and stuff.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd figure out, are they really something that regular people might want?
Regular people.
Right? You know,
Normal people?
Not the rich and famous.
I see.
Is what I'm getting at. Regular Joes and Jills, or whatever the proper one is there. But anyway, Dutch doors, that's coming up. It's interesting. And yeah, there's some things to think about. It might be an option for you. We'll help you decide. We're also going to be in the studio with Mac Flook. Mac Flook.
Not Matt.
Doesn't like to be called Matt. He'll go into that. Yeah, he's the manager of our Jennison store and has an interesting story of how he got from where he was going with his life to here. And we're going to get into all of that and a little bit more. So talk about the trades and the importance of the trades, all in that interview. But right now, let's talk about something we started talking about last week, wallpaper. And we were specifically focusing on kids' rooms and how wallpaper just gives you so many options if you're really looking to jumpstart a design in a room like that.
There's so many patterns out there. There's really something for everyone. You could flip through these books all day. And honestly, I would spend a day. Just come into one of the stores and get some inspiration because it's such a good way to find direction for design. If you don't have ideas for your color palette or theme, this is where you can start, and it builds in the color palette for you.
Right.
Makes it so simple.
So interesting. We talked about that last week, all the different patterns that are out there. It doesn't have to be just kids' rooms. That's what we were focused on. What we didn't get to do last week, because we just ran out of time, was talk about a number of projects that we think are really fun. We talked about doing, one wall and maybe doing murals or something like that.
Or a ceiling if you're brave.
Right. We mentioned those, but we didn't get to our favorite one, which was wallpaper cutouts.
Yeah, wallpaper cutout, there's so many possibilities for shape, and it's really essentially a person-sized silhouette on a wall. But this could be a dinosaur shape, it could be an elephant, flowers, cityscape.
Right. The cool thing is you don't need as much paper, so you can definitely save some money that way. It's super simple. There's not the commitment. You're really just putting on some shapes that could be 3 foot wide. It depends on the person.
I guess we should.
And the time of year.
Yeah. If it's just coming off of winter. Well, no, but it's a relatively simple installation, a simple process. And like Haley said, tons of options. One that you mentioned, Haley, that you liked was the idea of creating a little house in a corner out of wallpaper, like a reading nook or something.
Exactly. If you just span a corner with that classic peaked symmetrical house shape, have the peak in the center of the corner, now you've created this little nook.
Right.
I don't know, fill it with pillows and bookcases.
Right.
Could maybe use some of that cool log cabiny looking wallpaper.
Yes, exactly. Use the mural wallpaper to tie it in. I love the idea.
It'll add a fun, whimsical touch. And the thing to remember is that you're dealing with pattern and color as well as the shape. I think that's really interesting because, dinosaurs, maybe that's not everybody's thing, or we all conjure an image of what that might look like. But if you do them in a paper that's, a metal plating or concrete or stone kind of a look.
Rainbows.
A completely
Balloons.
different feel depending on the pattern. The pattern and the color on the paper, the textures that it creates work with the shape that you cut.
You're creating a story, essentially.
So cool. The options are almost unlimited. Now let's talk about how you would do it, because it's really, really simple. You don't need too much stuff.
Yeah, your supplies are the wallpaper, obviously. Some delicate painter's tape, we'll get into that. Cardboard so that you have a surface to cut it out, a pencil, X-Acto knife with some sharp blades, and an opaque projector. You can find an Easy Trace opaque projector on Amazon for around $30. And you need to look for these opaque projectors because if we're picturing, back in school, we had the overhead projector and you've got a clear transparency. Well, if we're printing something off from a picture online, we don't have a clear transparency to project. So we need something that's going to pick up an opaque surface.
Right. Not much. Like you said, what'd you say? $30?
Yep.
Yeah. Relatively inexpensive. So you get those things. Then you need to find your shape. Check out illustrations in books or, whatever.
Online.
Right.
Sure.
Online. You could draw your own.
Yeah,
You could
have your kids
draw. We should put links in the show notes for those. We don't have time to talk about it, but the pictures that little kids drew. Have you seen those, Dan, where the kids draw pictures of animals? And you know how kids' pictures look?
Right.
And then there's one dad, and I'm sure there's a bunch of them, but one dad that I've seen where he's got Photoshop skills. So he turns them into realistic-looking things
Yes,
based
I've
on the
seen
shape
that. It's
of the
so funny.
picture. It's hilarious.
So creepy looking. I love it.
I will put a link because it's worth it. But anyway, however you find your shape, get that. And then you got to figure out the right size for your wall. And that's really simple by just projecting onto the blank wall until you get
Move the projector back, forward.
Yeah, until you got it exactly the way you want it. And then you go ahead and tape that paper up using that delicate surface tape.
Exactly. You want to use the frog tape for delicate surfaces. It's the yellow stuff. And that's going to allow you to tape up that wallpaper without tearing the wallpaper or even removing the paint when you're peeling it back off.
Right. If you're ever doing any painting and you've got to tape off a freshly painted surface or wallpaper that's been installed, this is the tape to use because it's going to keep the surface that you're taping over protected. It's not going to tear it apart
but it
or
still
pull the
seals
paint.
stuff real easily.
Right, exactly. So anyway, get it taped up there, trace the design, and now it's a matter of cutting it out. And we think a really simple way would just be break down a cardboard box, tape the paper down to that. If it's wide enough that it covers 2 strips of paper, you're going to have to get both of those down there, configure them so the pattern matches.
And again, use the frog tape to connect them.
Right. Tape everything down onto that cardboard and then using an X-Acto knife, just cut it right out. And don't be stingy with the X-Acto knife blades or with your snap-off razor blades. Make sure you're snapping new blades, putting new blades on. Keep a sharp blade. That'll prevent it from tearing the paper.
Yeah. And then you're just ready to hang. And you really want to follow the instructions from the wallpaper itself because there's a lot of different types out there. There's peel and stick, pre-pasted. You've really got to be specific about the instructions there.
Definitely. So look into that. And there you go. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. A lot of cool stuff you can do. And what's really fun about this, my favorite part of the whole thing, because I'm so, what is the word?
Crafty?
No, cheap. Cheap, I think is the right word.
Okay, yeah,
I hate to
you're
throw
cheap.
away all these, because you're cutting out just a chunk out of your wallpaper.
Yeah.
Now, what do you do with the scraps? There's great projects for the scraps.
Yeah, I love this list that I found. There's some really cool ideas on here. Gift wrap, maybe not the easiest thing to wrap with because it's thicker, but create something really cool. A book cover, drawer liners. It's like your own little secret when you open that drawer. I love that. You can frame it for art, use it for stationery, fold your own envelopes.
Decoupage.
Yeah.
My daughter decoupages everything. She's got Mod Podge, and there she goes. And you could use all these scraps, and now you create these little elements that go in the room that connect it with the other
Coordinate,
elements
sure.
on the walls. So a lot of cool stuff. That's all the time we got. We're going to put links in the show notes so you can check out some of the things we talked about. And if you ever tackle a project like this, we'd love to see pictures.
Yeah, I love before and after pictures, but I'm definitely the person that forgets to take before pictures.
Right.
And then I'm done with the project. Oh, it would have been so satisfying to see the before and after. So if you remember to take a picture, tag us on Instagram, RepcoLite Paints, and you can get featured in our story. It just helps inspire other people, and we love to see those projects.
Right, exactly. Now, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be in the studio with Mac Flook from the Jennison store. That's all next. Stay tuned.
helping you turn your house into your dream home. This is the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show, presented by Benjamin Moore on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
And we're back, and Haley and I are in the studio with Mackenzie Flook. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Mackenzie
Mackenzie Flook. I
Mac.
go by Mac.
Mac, you're the manager at the Jennison store.
Correct.
And
Yep.
have been for 6
6
months?
months. Yep.
6 months. Now, you're not new to RepcoLite. You were working the Fulton Street store before that, right, in Grand Rapids?
Correct. Yep. I worked at our downtown Fulton Street location for about a year and a half, and then was offered the role at the Jennison store, so decided to take that position. So.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because Mac, well, first off, thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
I'm polite eventually.
On his birthday, no less.
That's right. I forgot about that. We were gonna,
And his day off.
yeah, we were going to laugh about that in a way, weren't we? Well, you said I couldn't laugh about it, but I wanted to. It's your birthday. It's your day off. And yet you still came here to talk about paint
Correct.
stuff.
Yep. I really don't have anything else better to do.
Yeah.
He is committed.
Looking for friends, and we'll give out Mac's contact information later if somebody feels bad for him. Wants to take him out for his birthday or something. No, you're here on your birthday. That's really cool. We appreciate that. So thanks for being here. And I guess what I wanted to start with is something that you said before we hit record and started this interview officially. We were talking off mic, and we were talking about Star Wars and a number of different things, and I mentioned how I'd seen the original movies in the theaters.
Yes.
And you made the statement that I just aged myself.
Correct.
Wow.
Yes.
Because you guys are
Just
apparently...
aged yourself.
I am 24 as of today.
Yeah, but yet...
24.
Yet,
24.
when he was talking about where he lived, he described it as the bee's knees. Now, seriously.
I would say I was raised in a traditional household. So
grief. I saw Star Wars in the theater, and I've aged myself. But where Mac lived, it was the bee's knees, and he's just cool and hip.
I don't think my vernacular lines up with my age.
So you're an old soul.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
old soul.
a young man's body.
Yeah. I don't know what I am, and I don't want to know. So we're going to just leave it there. But Mac, let's just start with a little bit about who you are. You came from a background in political science, right?
Correct,
This
yep.
is kind of interesting. Where did you go to school, and what was
I
the
went
plan?
to school at Aquinas College. Went there for political science. The plan originally when I started going to Aquinas, actually before even going to Aquinas, but looking at schools in general, was I was fairly adamant on, going to law school, or at least going to some type of a graduate program. Just like everybody,
Yeah.
I think in their senior year of high school, you find a newfound passion for politics and world affairs. So, I was just
think you can change
yes,
it?
exactly. But yeah, I thought I wanted to do law school. And, as I kind of started doing about 2-3 years of undergrad, I was like, maybe not, and I started working at a paint store during my freshman year.
Not RepcoLite, just another paint
not
store.
Not RepcoLite, correct. Yep, I worked at a separate paint store starting my freshman year because my roommate had, kind of given me a tip about it.
Yeah, why
So-
paint store?
So originally, I told my roommate, I'm looking for a job, but at the same time, I wasn't just kind of looking for, I didn't want to necessarily have like a grocery store, job or something like that.
Didn't want to work
or
in fast food.
Correct. Yep. Not
Yeah.
the fast food industry. But I'm a very hands-on person. So when he told me he worked at a paint store, first of all, I'd never met somebody that worked at a paint store before.
They're the elite.
Yes,
amongst
exactly.
us all.
Well,
Don't you agree, Haley?
Well, yeah.
I
and
came
now
to-
don't you
We're
agree,
here.
Mac?
Yes, I do agree. Yes, of course. But I went with him before I, obviously I started working there, and, I kind of walked in, and, it's one of those things that you don't really think about because everything in the world has a paint or a coating on it.
Yeah, this is what fascinates me. I love
But
this.
you're not aware, you never see the behind the scenes of it and what goes on.
Well, we don't even always realize how everything does have a coating on
Well,
it.
exactly.
Right.
I mean, I guarantee you, look around you right now and how many things in your presence have a paint or coating on them, whether it be a table, a stained floor with a stain and a varnish, your
Right.
walls, your ceiling, your car, whatever it may be, there is some type of a paint and coating on it. So
the roads we drive on,
Well,
the
yes,
bridges we go under.
The roads thing is
everything.
kind of funny because we did, we'll do plant tours from time to time at 17th Street. We'll bring people through. And I had to take a bunch of school kids through on a plant tour once. And one of the things we talked about is just that, what has paint on it? And so I'm asking these kids, and they're coming up with all these different answers. And I start mentioning things like roads and parking lots and just the stares of amazement. I did not expect that, but they were so blown away by the fact that, well, roads do. And if they didn't have the lines on them, it'd be chaos.
Chaos would ensue.
Anarchy.
Yeah, and I thought, there you go. That's paint.
Yeah, you're Batman.
I am basically like Batman. Don't you agree?
Yes.
Do you feel that way too?
Yes,
You're
I do, Dan.
more Robin than Batman.
Yeah.
Batman was more aged. And
Yes. I would say I'm a more, I'm a more young, hip version. So I would be the Robin.
Robin.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Rob for short.
Yeah. So everything has paint on it, and you were finding some interest in that, and you ended up working at that store.
Yep. So I ended up working at the paint store. Originally it was just, a part-time job basically to just, have some type of an income coming in because obviously college is expensive. And also my parents were like, hey, let's get you a job. Your weekends can't just be full of, your normal college experience.
Right.
You need to have some type of responsibility. But started working at the paint store, and initially, I really didn't have much of a background in paint. A couple summers, I had stained some decks. I grew up in a house that was completely made of, cedar siding. We had a large deck. So had I stained the deck and had I restained our house multiple times? Yes, I had. I was no paint or stain expert by any means. So it was really, kind of a blank slate for me, and went into it. And within a couple of weeks, I realized what I got myself into.
In a good way?
In a good way.
But a
question mark.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was, you don't realize how much goes into it.
Right.
And you don't realize how many questions there are that need answers and some of the consequences that could happen if you are given the wrong answers.
See, I think that's really interesting in regards to the trades in general, because that's really what this is.
Correct.
This is
It's kind of high-stakes stuff, actually.
Yeah, it's kind of like a hybrid between the two, because you're not really, on a construction site or on site. You're not welding, or you're not an electrician. And, you're not doing an apprenticeship or anything like that. At the same time, you are working hands-on with product, hands-on with contractors, and it's a form of construction.
Yeah, and the knowledge has got to be there. You've got to be able to problem solve. You've got to understand the substrate that it's going onto, the prep that goes into that, how to coat it, what's got to go in as a top coat, and then how you maintain that over time, too, is even important. So there's so much to know about the coatings industry, or even how is that coating made? What's in that paint that makes it better than this paint?
Yeah.
There's a lot of science.
Exactly. Yes.
Now, we're in the studio with Mackenzie Flook from the Jennison store. And, Mac, we're going to take a break. Can you hang with us over the break?
I think I can.
Because you think you can. Well,
I think I can. I don't
anyway,
know.
So you don't have big plans.
I have a lot of plans going on back in GR. So
well, this is important. So we'll get you out of here soon. But we do want to talk about just the trades in general, because there is so much to discuss about that. And I've got some questions about how you felt going from a career path towards law towards
and
working
switching
in paint. Yeah, I want to know about that. So we're going to get to that in just a minute. Stay tuned.
If you want to take your DIY skills up a rung, the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show is here to give you a boost on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
And we're back. I'm Dan Hansen, and Haley Johnson is here in the studio with me, and Mackenzie Flook, Mac, right? That's
Mac,
what you like to be called.
MAC.
But you were adamant that when we say it, it might sound like Matt.
Correct.
With a T,
Yeah.
not
So
Matt.
I mean, my biggest pet peeve is, we take a lot of phone calls every day, whether it be from homeowners, contractors, bosses, and I introduce myself as Mac. My full name is Mackenzie, but over the phone, I always try and emphasize, Mac. like emphasize the C. But people, every time I still get Matt, Pat, mic.
Oh, wow.
And I do work with 2 other mics.
Yes, so
So I
that's
do think
probably-
that maybe, that might be an influencing factor.
But you don't want to be Matt.
But I don't want to be Matt. No.
I was always Stan. This is Dan. Hi, Stan. No, it's Dan. Yeah, Stan. So what I need is... Anyway, what I want to talk about, we talked about it at the beginning of the last segment. You talked about your original plan. You went to college for law.
My dream was to go to law school. I really wanted to do some type of medical law because I did have a passion for the medical field as well.
Wow, cool.
One, I quickly realized the amount of time that was necessary for that stuff, and it's not to go without saying how much time and dedication is expected of people that go into that career path. But it's not made for everybody. And I'm just happy that I didn't force myself to do something that I knew I did not have a passion for.
How did that feel? Because your original plans, all your friends, everybody around you, I mean, that's what you talk about. I know that I had the similar things.
Yep.
My kids have gone through it. We're going to do these big things in life.
Yes.
And then you end up working at a paint store, and not everybody sees that truly the elite of society.
Yes, exactly.
Go to paint stores.
Well, I think somewhere around my junior or senior year, there was an acceptance from within myself and my friends that I wasn't going to be doing that any longer. And just based off of how much I would talk about paint and coatings on my free time to my
sure
friends.
You had friends just coming out of the woodwork to listen to
First
you
of all,
talk.
I got quite a few of my friends actually to work at a paint store, so I am a recruiter at the same time.
So now they know.
So one of my really good friends actually does work at the Fulton Street store right now, and he is actually going to be going to dental school this summer.
Okay.
But in the meantime, he is working at our Fulton Street store,
right?
Because it is, it's a fun hands-on job to do. But yeah, I was working at the paint store, and I really started to grow a passion for, one, the relationships that you would develop with these contractors that you see every day, because really you don't understand that you do see these people every single day, and you develop these relationships, and you want to make sure that you are doing your job as best you can to ensure that they can do their job as best they can.
And that's what I think is so cool about all of this. My son is an electrical apprentice. Mm-hmm. And again, a number of friends or people, now the trades are a little more respected now, and that's coming back, thank goodness.
Yep.
Definitely.
But still, there was the idea that, that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, it's almost like a disappointment.
Right.
Yes.
But he's talked about that. How many people he's helped, how many people he's met. But when he's meeting them, he's helping them through a problem. He's figuring out something, and he's getting them through this issue that they're dealing with. And they're all so happy, also relieved. He's built relationships. He's helping people.
Yeah, I
There's
think the
value
trades
in
are
it.
so valuable. I mean, there's just so much that we can't all know or have specialty, and we can't be our own plumber, be an electrician, be a car mechanic, be a painter. I mean, that's a lot of knowledge that goes into each one of those fields. Mm-hmm. And so to have specialties like this, I think should be more respected. I mean, there's actually a lot of science and knowledge that goes into each one of those, and so much problem solving. I mean, talk about critical thinking.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, I think I can speak for a lot of homeowners when I say, you might, especially with recently going through COVID lockdown and everything, obviously there's been an influx in the amount of homeowners that are painting the interiors, refinishing, doing some sort of a DIY project. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of homeowners that come in and say, wow, originally I wanted to have a painter come in and paint my place, but I got the estimate back and I was like, no way. And then they go ahead and do it themselves, and then they come back in and they say, well, I see why
they charge
so much. And, I always tell painters too, I'm like, I'm happy to be on this side of the counter, because every time I go home and I paint something, I'm like, I am so thankful that I am not a painter, because that is tough work.
Yeah, it's physical, it's mentally exhausting. You've really got to pay attention.
But there is such value in doing that. I mean, my son talks about that all the time. He feels so good after having worked a whole day and just comes home. He just feels like it's been a great day spent. It's not for everybody. The trades aren't for everybody. My daughter, his twin, is definitely college bound. That's her path. She wants to teach. She wants to do psychology. She's always talking about what she's learned and how it applies to what's going on in my head. That is so off-putting.
Yes.
Dad, do you know why you just did that, Maddie? Let's not
Don't
find
tell
out.
me.
I don't
You
want to be
don't need to go
psychoanalyzed
down
over
that
cereal.
road. No, yeah,
Right.
when I was going to school for art, I mean, I was constantly aware that I was paying a lot for a degree where I was actually learning skills that people would learn in trade school, essentially,
Yes.
as a sculpture major. I mean, I was welding, I was casting iron. I could work in a foundry, essentially, but I wasn't certified in any of those things when I graduated.
Yeah, you mentioned that. That was kind of,
Yeah.
we were talking about that the other day. That's kind of too bad.
It
So you've
is a
got the
little too
skills.
bad. Right.
Because you said you applied for a job
Yeah.
somewhere, and
You're
what
like,
was that?
well, you don't have a degree in this. You're not a man. Do you want to be a secretary here? Seriously.
Sounds like a
they
great
called
fit.
me back to be the secretary.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. The trades, though, very, very cool. It's
Yeah.
worked out for you. You're happy with
and
it.
like I said, one of the reasons that I like doing what I do every day is, for me, I get to be on my feet all day, working hands-on with actual product, and partaking in a career of never-ending learning is something
Right.
that I find a great value.
There's such huge value in just enjoying your workday. I know my son comes home so excited, so happy. He loves working with the coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
For my daughter, college is the thing. If you've got kids, grandkids, all of that, the trades really are something to consider. If you haven't given them a lot of weight or a lot of thought, it's definitely something to think about. It's not just that career. When I was in high school, it was looked at as, if you can't make it in college,
Yes.
maybe you can go do these things.
Go do the
Yeah,
trades
and I
instead.
think it's so
not
opposite.
the way it is. And looking back on life, I went to school I was going to teach, and then I was going to be a pastor, and now I work in a paint store. I have finally made it.
The circle of life.
But it seemed like I was going to do important things.
Yes.
And then I come here. And that was my initial struggle. I struggled for a long time trying to wrap my brain around,
Yeah.
what have I done? Why have I done this?
Right,
And
our
then-
egos take a hit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, I'm extremely humble. It's one of my gifts. So that wasn't the biggest struggle. No, it
Being
was.
the number one radio talk show
Yeah.
host
Right,
of West
yeah.
Michigan.
That's what I like to tell. See, there's a reason we brought.
Yes.
I don't think any of that's
or
true.
pump up the tires.
But it's fun. But one thing I did that really drove the point home is I had a plumbing project that I was tackling at home on a weekend, and it went so poorly because I stopped in at one particular place where somebody just gave me everything I put on the counter. I put it on the counter, they
No
rang
questions
it up.
asked.
No questions
Why
asked.
is this part with this?
Exactly.
Yes.
They sent me out the door, and I went to work. And man, I was yelling within just a few hours. I was wet. The water was everywhere. I was yelling at the children. My wife was mad. Everybody was upset. It was a horrible, horrible experience. And I realized, okay, there's something that I just broke. I need to go back and get another one. So I ran down to a different place, and I got a different person who started asking me all kinds of questions. Why are you doing this? What are you exactly working on? And gave me, here's what you did wrong. You just need one of these.
Gave
If
you the
get one of these-
waypoints to complete your
Yes,
project.
I went home
Yes.
and I had the whole thing finished in minutes with no pain.
Yes.
And I
Right.
thought, you know what? This second person saved me from the rest of the weekend of utter despair and fighting in the
Yeah.
family.
Totally.
Turmoil at home. And I thought that's kind of what we have the opportunity to do if we do our jobs well.
Yep.
And that's what my son runs into. When he can fix a job or help somebody with an electrical problem, and on the team that he's on, they can get somebody back up and running. He saved their weekend. He's
Right.
given them
Yep.
the free time to go and
Yep.
do the important things in life. So there is value in all of these things.
Yeah,
Correct.
because we all depend on this stuff in our daily lives, but none of us really understand how it works. We're kind of removed from all of
Oh, yeah.
this. And so you don't really realize how much you depend on the things until they're not working,
Yeah.
and then
it's
how
just
much
a part of living in a
knowledge-
first world country. You
Yes.
just assume something is going to work, and if it doesn't, then you call somebody who will fix it.
Right, and you have no idea what actually is
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
It's all voodoo.
Yeah.
So you like what you're doing. You like working for RepcoLite. That's been fun. One thing we wanted to mention before we wrap this one up is that we're always looking for new people to fill in stores as we grow, as the stores get busier.
Correct.
It's always good to have new people.
Yep.
And if you are interested in at least getting your name in, filling out a job application, you can email us at info@repcolite.com, and we'll connect you with the right people. So if you are looking, we are too. Mac, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
Now, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're talking about something I'm really excited about, adds a ton of curb appeal and is really unique, Dutch doors. All that next. Stay tuned.
If you want to take your DIY skills up a rung, the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show is here to give you a boost on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
And we're back. I'm Dan Hansen. I'm here with Dan Altina, Haley Johnson, and we're going to talk about Dutch doors.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to just kick it to you guys because I'm probably too chubby to even really handle this.
Or too cheap.
I'm still
I think
smarting
that's more like it.
from the first segment where I floated the concept. Now, do you guys not understand how social skills work? When someone says I'm chubby from winter, that's when everybody else
you're
says
not.
yes.
Do you know who you're sitting in a room with?
You all just nodded. Yeah. I
Right, yeah,
start
I've
working
noticed.
on that. Golly. It's been winter and it's been a little snowy. Anyway, I'll get over it eventually. Dutch doors. You guys pitched this as a topic and I wasn't sure about it. I kind of fought along the way a little bit. I wasn't wowed by it. But in the end, I think it's pretty fun. Let's start with what it is first off, for the few people out there who aren't familiar. A Dutch door is a horizontally split door. So basically, the top half opens independently of the bottom half. And I think the biggest cool thing about it is it gives you a whole bunch of new area to pinch your fingers. Normally, you've got just the one side of the door or where the hinges are.
Right.
Now you've got another part entirely. So
Yeah,
I
that's
think
the
there's
real selling point.
yeah, I'm sure there's a better selling point than that. And we're going to get into that. But let's start with the history because it is actually quite interesting.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
mean,
Dutch doors.
they've been
Why
around
is it
for a
called a
long
Dutch door
time.
in the first place?
Well, they're from the Netherlands, right? They were designed in around the 17th century, and they were really practical then. People had farms, and it was a way to keep the things you wanted out of the house, like chickens and goats, on one side and still have open air, right? Because you've got the top half of the door open now. You've got some airflow. You're letting sun in. The kids are in the house still. So they're really functional for people.
Right. It kept dust, leaves, things like that outside. It was just great. They saw it on farmhouses and things like that. But it wasn't just on farmhouses. It wasn't long before the doors actually made their way into the cities, and you'd end up seeing them on doorways in cities like Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Gouda, known, Dan, for a cheese
Gouda?
that I think... Oh, did I say that wrong?
Well, you didn't say it Dutch enough.
I'm supposed to say what?
Gouda
We'll let you do that.
Okay, so cities like Amsterdam, Rotterdam,
and Gouda.
Gouda. Anyway, it was in the cities too, because even in the cities, people still kept animals. They had cows for milking and cheese. They had chickens. Sometimes they had a goat.
Sometimes a rat.
Sometimes a rat.
You wanna
they
keep
wanted
those
the
out.
rat outside and keep the horses outside. I guess they want to keep everything outside.
Yeah.
Except the kids.
Kids
Did anybody
inside.
put goats inside?
I mean, you could. I wouldn't.
Do you think that would be a good idea?
I don't
No.
think it would be a good
They
idea.
poop everywhere.
They would? Well, then
Yeah.
they eat everything.
I don't think that you
Sure.
train them to use a litter box.
Yeah, I doubt it. So anyway, they're in the cities and stuff like that. That's where they came from. They made their way to America, and they really took off in the American colonies of New York and New Jersey, and then spread throughout the country for the same reasons that they were popular in Europe.
Yeah, we didn't have screens back then, so they were just really practical. You could let air flow in, let some sun in, while keeping all the things like pests out.
Right. Now, we're seeing a bit of a resurgence in these things. At least if we're reading design blogs and things like that, we're
Yeah.
seeing them more and more.
I mean, farmhouse design is really popular right now.
Right. Now, have you ever seen one in real life on a house? This is where my sticking point was. They're all in
Yes.
pictures online. Okay.
Yes.
On the front of a house?
No,
or
in
a
the
house?
back door.
The back door. Okay.
Yeah.
So somebody around here.
Yeah.
All
In
right.
my childhood neighborhood growing up. Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
Our neighbor.
We're going to take a field trip when we're done.
Who knows if it's still there, but it was
well,
cool.
See, I've not seen a lot of these, but I have seen tons of them online. They look super cool. But we wanted to dig into it and figure out, is this really something for the regular people? You know?
I mean, if you're updating your space and you want something unique to draw some curb appeal, it might be for you.
Right. And that's the big draw. Now, it's still popular for all of the reasons that it was popular in the past. You can open up the top half, let air in, let light in. But what about bugs? Now we have screens. That was my first
Yes.
Objection.
Yeah.
I need a screen door.
That person. Yeah, I want a screen door. But they're available, right? We can get a screen for... We can get a screen for these.
We can.
Okay. So I'm chubby and immature. Go for it, guys. It's your show.
We're going to pile on Dan today.
Yeah. Tell me about the screens.
Well, you saw actual screen doors, Dan, in front of these Dutch doors.
Yeah. Yep.
So you could still have
It is
a
possible,
screen door.
sure, as long as the Dutch door swings in, which almost every exterior door does.
Okay. And then I saw roll-up screens that are just for the top half, and it would just, have magnets that keep it in place.
Okay. So
there's a
screens
couple
are
options.
available if you have common sense objections like I do. It'll also keep pets and children in, unwanted creatures out, all the things that we talked about. Deliveries made easy, perhaps.
Yes. My cat Burger loves to try to get out the door when we've got a pizza delivery, and it's always a struggle.
See, I am stunned still that you think Burger, if you open the top half of that, isn't going to jump over
He
that.
doesn't know what's on the other side.
Okay.
That's a risky leap.
I guess.
I don't know if he has that much faith.
Yeah, I'd be
Confidence.
interested. So all of those options, and you guys touted that it's the friendly option. You can keep that open and people come by and talk. And I suggested, let's say it's the friendly option for those of us who are friendly.
Right. Another one of your objections.
Well, I didn't know that I wanted that hanging open all the time,
Hi, neighbor.
I know. Anyway, all of those things, but like Haley said, the biggest draw right now, and this is something that didn't play out in the past, the big draw is the design aspect to it. And you're really not going to make a bigger statement on the front of your house.
Yeah.
It's got to
They're
be up
very
there.
unique.
Right. It's so unique. And we've talked about it over and over and over on the show, how important a front door is to the curb appeal of your home. It's relatively a small area compared to the whole house itself. Mm-hmm. And yet it makes more of a statement than pretty much everything else. Our eyes are naturally drawn to front doors when we drive past. It's where guests and visitors come up unless they're well acquainted. Then they go in the garage.
Yeah, I mean,
Sometimes-
it's high impact for sure.
Exactly. So that's the big thing. The big question we had after all of that is, okay, so it sounds good. Is it all good, or are there some downsides? Turns out there are. We made a few calls and talked to some experts at Zeeland Lumber and also WMGB Home Improvements. And the first concern raised by either one of those, both of those, was the fact that you live in Michigan, remember, and the elements are a big deal. And with this extra, the way the door works, you've got a whole extra area to
There's
seal.
another gap that's in the middle of the door.
It's not just the bonus for the extra pinching spots for your fingers. It's also a place for the elements to get in. And when I was talking to them on the phone, they said if you've got a large overhang where the door, if it's going to be an exterior door,
Right.
that will remove some of the red flags. They're not going to be as concerned about it.
Protects it from rain and snow. And
Right. So that is a concern. The second concern was price. They are a little pricier. We thought it seemed like they started around $1,700.
Yep.
And they'll go up from there.
Exactly.
So that's something to consider. And the third was installation.
Yeah, I mean, that's another aspect of that cost, really. This is probably not a door that you're going to install on your own. They're heavy for an exterior, and you've got a little bit more to deal with now
Right.
as
There's
far as
4
leveling
hinges
things out.
instead of 3. So it's not just a quick swap
Right.
of a door. So there's a little more involved. Zeeland Lumber mentioned that they've got lists of installers they'd be happy to hand out. Basically, what we thought is that it's good information. It's an interesting concept. It's got tremendous design appeal.
Right.
All we'd recommend is that before you jump in, go talk to some experts.
Yeah, dig
And
into it a little bit. Make sure it's right for your house.
We just wanted to get the information out there because we thought it was kind of fun.
one quick thing is they can also be used interior. People
Right.
use these doors inside.
That's definitely, and that takes away, of course, the element problem.
Right. And
Unless you've got other issues with your home. If you've got the elements inside, Dutch door, that's the least of your
if you want to
concerns.
keep a goat in one room and not have it go to the other room.
Yeah, my goat is living room bound. And that's all the time that we've got. We're going to have to wrap it up. If you want to check this one out again, you can find it online at RepcoLite.com.
Also, check out our Instagram page. We'll have pictures of these Dutch doors in our stories coming up, and you can find us at RepcoLite Paints.
Whatever you do today, make sure paint's a part of it. I'm Dan Hansen.
I'm Dan Altina.
And I'm Haley Johnson.
Thanks for listening.